Tom Pelissero joining us from KC, the NFL Network Insider. We know how busy you are. Thank you for taking the time today. You've been there a couple days. What's the vibe over there?
Well, Suzy, as always, let me first say what's up to the guys in the studio.
Hey, Tommy B.
You really know how to do it. Oh,
That's my guy.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, like, you're like Robert Saleh. Like, you know how to, and Aaron Rodgers, you know how to feed the egos here. Nicely done.
That's our guy, Tommy P.
Quite the welcome video, that's for sure. I would say, right now, there's certainly more of a buzz just around the city in general. I've been in the green room, which is the coolest green room setup that I can remember in all my years covering the NFL draft. We're in Union Station. There's like 200-foot, probably not 200, 100-foot high ceilings. It's a really cool environment. Stage is right outside, and the weather forecast is improving. So the 17 prospects who were invited to be in the green room got in last night. Zay Flowers, the Boston College receiver, my fellow Eagle, stopped by dinner last night. He came out, hung out with me on TV today, too. And just, the excitement that you see, like I showed Zay, I'm like, hey, have you seen where your couch is and the phone? And, so like I came over and showed him the phone that's got his name and his extension on it. And, and he's just lighting up. Like, this is a dream for these guys. And you just hope that it's not a particularly long dream come tomorrow night.
Obviously, we are hearing about Frank Reich saying that the Panthers have come to a consensus on the first pick in the draft. I'm wondering if you know any chance, what is that consensus?
For the past several weeks, people within the league, and based upon the information everyone has, would be stunned if it's anyone other than Bryce Young at number one. He's simply outside of the height and the overall size, the weight, the build, everything else. He checks the boxes in terms of the processing, in terms of the maturity. He's obviously a playmaker. He's really, really accurate. And he's just a guy that everybody has liked being around through the course of the process. So the draft really, again, barring a absolute stunner, begins at number two. And people within the league do not have that same strong sense of what exactly the Texans are going to do. I mean, depending who you ask, they're either taking Tyree Wilson or they're taking Will Anderson or they're taking C.J. Stroud. And in any event, they haven't told anybody outside the building exactly what they're going to do. They're also in the unique spot where they also own the number 12 overall pick. So that opens up the possibility, and it's one Nick Caserio has been planning for, where perhaps you take the defensive player at number two because there just aren't very many of those guys, and then you either sit and see if someone falls to you at number 12, or potentially you trade up to ensure that you get that quarterback. And Nick Caserio has been calling around within the top 12, both about moving back from 2 as well as moving up from 12. Will any of it actually yield something? It's been a while since we had a really, really big trade up at the top of the draft, but never say never, because Arizona certainly is open for business at 3, and depending what happens at number 2, everyone knows that the Colts sitting there at 4 are going to draft a quarterback. If you want to go get your guy, you may have to get ahead of Indianapolis. It's all going to lead to a really dramatic and fun Thursday night here.
So do you believe, Tom Pelissero joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show, NFL Network Insider, do you believe then the top 5 will go somewhat as scripted?
I don't know what the script is at this point, Suzy, honestly, just because, again, beyond Bryce Young, there's a couple of different things that can happen at number 2, and that's going to have a butterfly effect on everybody else. I mean, everyone's known number 3 has been available for some time, and it's entirely possible that Arizona has certain tentative deals, depending on what happens in number 2, where they'll be able to get out of that pick. But if they can't get out of that pick, do they stand in and take Paris Johnson, which has been certainly the strong rumbling within the league in the past several days? Potentially, could they go with a defensive player? I'm fairly confident they're not going to take a quarterback there, even though Kyler Murray is coming off of the ACL. But the only really true things that I think everybody is confident in up at the top of the draft is at number 1, it's Bryce Young. At number 4, the Colts are going to take the top quarterback not named Bryce Young on their board. Everything else that happens around them, including Seattle, which may want to trade back, there's just a lot up in the air. And again, that's going to make it fun tomorrow night.
Has social media changed at all how you cover a draft?
Well, to the extent that somebody posting on Reddit that their sister's cousin heard that one player is claiming he's going to go number 1 and it moved betting lines. Other than that,
it's
no,
crazy.
I don't think so.
But it is crazy.
That,
it changes the conversation in the strangest of ways.
When I tweeted and I generally don't pay attention to the betting lines, but when I tweeted Bryce Young has canceled his remaining visits, that was about, I think, 10 days ago. And the betting lines I know, because people were sending it to me, shifted like massively toward Bryce Young at number one. And I don't even like that. That doesn't even process in my head all the time that, hey, if I tweet this thing, it's going to, cause money to move. I mean, that's the last thing that I'm thinking about with any of this. But I mean, I do think there's such an echo chamber that exists, and not just within the public or the media, but also within teams, because we're all talking to each other, right? GMs and head coaches are calling me, and we're going through the board, and we're going up and down the top 32 picks and who the surprises are going to be in one and what trades potentially could happen. And we all kind of have, sometimes there's different information. A lot of times it's similar information. And, there's a good chance that a lot of it's accurate. But there's also a possibility that some of it is stemming from something that's not real. And that's the stuff that you're just trying to sort out. At least the good part is, outside of the trades that can happen within the first round involving players, which we saw a couple of those last year with A.J. Brown and Hollywood Brown both switching teams. Beyond that, there's not a lot you can do during the draft other than wait until you hear the trades have been made or hear the pick has been made, and then you kind of find out what comes next. It's like everything you know about reporting, especially because I think everybody knows we're not allowed to acknowledge or tip the picks before they're announced on TV. There's only so much that we can do. So I'm I'm monitoring trades and things like that and texting people within the league. But
finding good barbecue places to go.
Well, I'm going to do that before the draft. I think I might pick up a little Jack Stack and bring it back to the hotel after I'm done with TV tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, you're kind of just you're enjoying it a little bit. But again, last year there were a ton of trades. There was some wild stuff that happened in round one, and that was without really the quarterbacks, the caliber of quarterbacks that you have in this draft. It's going to be wild.
You mentioned earlier the Aaron Rodgers video. I want your reaction to this. Obviously, Marshall was unwilling to bash Rich's excitement. So I'm curious about your take on watching Aaron Rodgers walk in this morning. It reminded me of George Washington crossing the Delaware.
Well, the first thing I was struck by was just Aaron looked very happy and relaxed. I mean, I think that we remember some of his arrivals in recent years in Green Bay. In 2021, it was after everything that had gone on and trade talks and everything else, there was real uncertainty. I was in Green Bay at Lambeau Field, and I got up to the cement bridge that goes over the player parking lot and happened to get the video that we showed a million times on NFL Network on my phone of just Aaron coming out of what at the time was the COVID testing tent and then walking into the facility. Last year it was the setup, the Nicolas Cage look and everything. In this case, somebody obviously sent him a Jets hoodie, and he just kind of walks in with a big grin on his face. What I see, and I've covered Aaron for, virtually his entire career. I was there in 2006 when he got in the game against the Patriots and broke his ankle. I was on the beat in 2007 when he got the opportunity in Dallas to, get his opportunity when Favre had an injury and played well. And it was kind of from that point forward, Mike McCarthy, Ted Thompson knew, like, this guy's ready. And, when we need him on the field, we're going to be able to do that. I think about everything that's gone on through the course of Aaron's career, and he's a complicated person. He's a very thoughtful type of a person, but he just looks like a guy right now who knows he's kind of playing with house money. Yes, there's going to be a ton of pressure. Yes, people are going to be looking at the Jets and debating for the next however many months, is this a Super Bowl contender? Should they be winning the whole thing? Is it a disappointment if they don't? But for Aaron, he was in a place that by his own acknowledgement last month was 90% certain he was going to retire, and then went into the darkness, came out, got the sense that the Packers were moving on without him, and decided, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to come back and play, and I'll go and play in New York. So whatever happens this season, he does look like, just looking at him again from the outside looking in and, knowing him from way back, he looks like a guy who's, sort of at peace here with however this whole thing plays out. And we'll see. I mean, it's one of the biggest storylines in recent NFL history. I don't think that the track record is great for quarterbacks changing teams super late in their career. I mean, Aaron's going to turn 40 later this year. But, obviously you've got the exceptions to that rule. And you've got Brett Favre, who went to the Jets, tore his biceps and did not have a good season in 2008, but then came back in that season for the ages in 2009. If he doesn't throw an interception in New Orleans, he might win another Super Bowl. You have Peyton Manning won one near the end where he was physically diminished, but just kind of with grit and guts went out and won. Aaron can still do it. Aaron's issue is not age. It's, a big part of it's just been injuries. If he can stay healthy, and the Jets are certainly at number 15 going to be looking for protection for him. There's no reason to think, based on the flashes he had on tape last year, that for one season, one time, on the biggest stage with all the pressure, that Aaron can't dig deep and at least give himself the opportunity to have one of those magical types of runs.
This is going to be a long fall.
It's going to be amazing. Tom, that's the thing that I keep coming back to, the 90%. Him telling Pat that he was 90% retired before. Did he do the full 4 days? It feels like he only did half that. But so is he playing this year out of spite for Green Bay and Brian Gutekunst essentially, or what's your sense there?
Well, there's going to be, I assume in this press conference that starts at the top of the hour, a Seinfeld-type moment of, Aaron, are you doing this for spite? No, I'm doing this because of all the right reasons, want to play, want to win. Well, you kind of already said spite. We're not going to allow you to go back on that. I mean, I had the same impression when I heard that initial interview that he feels like he's got something to prove. But he's also, I've always found him to be a very internally motivated human in terms of, again, he's complicated and he thinks about things in different ways. And people can disagree with his opinions at times, but you at least know that whatever he's saying, whatever he's, the way he's acting, it's coming from this place of meditation and self-reflection. So I think that on a base level, he's doing this because he really feels inside him it's the right thing to do. But to the extent that he felt jilted by the Packers, that they weren't just willing to sit around and wait for him, I think there's absolutely some motivation there. And from the Packers' perspective, based on what Brian Gutekunst has said publicly, you understand their perspective too. I mean, they were trying to get a hold of him, to visit him, to just have the conversation, not of the, hey, we're moving on conversation, the, hey, organizationally, we got to do some things differently here. Maybe some of your buddies aren't going to be back. Maybe we're not going to bring back the Cobbs and the Mercedes Lewises, the Mason Crosbys. We may have to move on from some other high-priced players. Like, do you want to be a part of this? And can you be all in? And are you going to show up for the offseason? And are you going to work with these young receivers? Like, they never got to have that conversation. I think there's some disappointment in that, but some credit to Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball and those guys for doing the contract the way that they did, because it did build in the flexibility, even though when they signed him last year for, basically it was 3 years and $150+ million, they built it in such a way that they had that late vesting option bonus, and they didn't have a ton of bonus proration into the future. They're going to eat, based on the restructure they did yesterday to facilitate the trade, about $40.3 million, I think it is, this year in dead cap space, but they will have no dead cap for Aaron Rodgers in 2024 and beyond. They owe Aaron Rodgers $0 additional dollars. They will pay him no cash this year. So from a cash perspective, they're already out of it. From a cap perspective, they'll be out of it next year. And we'll see what the final contract ends up being with the Jets here, too, because right now, based on that restructure yesterday, he's on paper for $1.2 million this year and $107-point-something million next year. Pretty confident that's not what the final contract's going to be, so we'll get those answers in a couple of days.
So what do these teams do in the draft? What does Green Bay do at 13, and what do you anticipate the Jets doing at 15?
It's a great question, Brockman, because, at 13, the ultimate heel turn for the Packers, of course, would be you draft a receiver. Aaron never had a receiver, drafted in the first round the whole time that he's the starting quarterback, and everybody talks about that, even though, they drafted the Jordy Nelsons of the world early in the second round, and he was a pretty darn good player for him for a long time. But it would just be a fantastic type of a development if that's what they did. But you also know that Gutekunst isn't thinking through that lens. I do think receiver's a possibility at 13 for them. I think tight end, with Robert Tonyan not being back there and how they want to use tight ends in that offense, I think that is a possibility. And they potentially could be in the offensive line bucket as well. Just because, with David Bakhtiari's knee, he's not played a lot over the last couple of years. They have to hedge their bets at least to a certain degree. They got really good young players, like Josh Nyman, who has played every different position. But they may need to have an upgrade there. And for the Jets at 15, you're just hoping, if you're Joe Douglas and those guys, that moving back 2 spots doesn't cost you one of those top tackles in the draft, because those guys are going to go fast. Paris Johnson, from everyone I've talked to, is going to go high. Skoronski, who most people have as a guard, is going to go high from Northwestern. The Tennessee guy, Darnell Wright, and the Georgia player, Broderick Jones, all those guys potentially could go in the first 14 picks, because you got a run of teams right there, Tennessee, Green Bay, New England, all could use offensive line help.
Right.
So if those guys are gone with the Jets, you trade back, you take an Anton Harrison a little bit later. I just have to think they've done a lot of work. Joe Douglas has done a great job. Last year's draft class, potentially, if they win a Super Bowl this year, all the talk will be about Aaron. But a lot of it will be they got studs with those first 4 picks last year. I would certainly think that, there's a lot of things that are on the table, but getting some additional help up front, especially with the injuries they went through last year on the offensive line, has to be top of mind in New York.
All right, Tom, some non-draft stuff happened today. Tell us about Chase Young. Why was his 5th year not picked up?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. They did the same thing last year with Daron Payne, and Payne came out, played with his hair on fire, got franchise tagged, and then got a massive $20 million plus per year extension. Ron Rivera actually referenced that earlier in the offseason, saying, hey, we did that. Sometimes there's value in people being motivated. I mean, I would just tell you this. Think about the situation right now in Washington. You have new ownership that, barring something falling apart, is going to be approved in the coming months. Usually when you have a coaching staff that's already in place, that makes it a critical type of year. If you don't win and win big, you are in all likelihood going to be out. And so if you're Ron Rivera, you're thinking, and Ron's always had a history of taking care of the guys who produce, but you're thinking, how are we going to get the most motivated Chase Young we possibly can? Because 2023 matters a whole lot more to Ron Rivera and that coaching staff right now, frankly, than 2024 and beyond. Ron's a good coach, and we'll see how this season shakes out. But it does make some sense here, just with the injuries Young has had as well, that history with Daron Payne, and knowing the situation things are in. This guy was a Pro Bowler and the Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie. We know he can be really good, and if he comes out and is healthy, this is also going to be a great thing for Chase Young because he'll be that much closer. Instead of looking at a 5th-year option in 24, he'll be looking at a franchise tag and a monster type of an extension, close to $30 million per year, if, again, he's healthy and he produces.
Tom, before we lose you, Austin Ekeler, maybe we should talk about Derrick Henry. You think one of these guys is getting traded?
Sorry, I had someone yelling in the background. Austin Ekeler and who?
And Derrick Henry.
Appears I'm in the middle of a tour here now. Austin Ekeler, there have been preliminary discussions from what I've heard. As of yesterday, there was no news on that front. He's in a tough spot because he's got a low number that they can keep, $6+ million. He was an undrafted rookie, so he didn't make upfront money through the course of his career. He wants to get paid, and the Chargers have the leverage here because of the number that he's on this year and the possibility of a franchise tag in 2024. I'm sure there's a bunch of teams who would love to have Austin Ekeler, but are they going to pay him and give the Chargers the type of draft pick it would take to get him out? I would just refer back to what Brandon Staley has said, which is that they hope and want him to be a part of the Chargers in 2023. And then with regard to Derrick Henry, Randy Carlton said earlier this week they have not gotten any calls on him. There's certainly a possibility that, a trade could come together quickly. But the thing you have to always remember here, Suzy, is that in order to get trades done during the draft with veteran players, you really need to have, if you're going to do a contract with them, you need to have that done in advance. When A.J. Brown got traded last year, that contract was already negotiated. It was already in place. And so that, was taken care of. With Hollywood Brown, the trade got done while they were on the clock, and he did not get a new contract. So with Derrick Henry, a new contract would be a prerequisite to any deal. Same thing with Austin Ekeler. So if those guys are going to get traded during this draft, the wheels are going to have to get in motion here ASAP.
Tom, I know you're kind of busy giving tours over there, so we will let you go. And as always, thanks for taking the time. You always do. You're a class act. We appreciate it. When we do our mock draft of announcers, we'll take you 2 right behind Rich because I know where my bread is buttered. So, priorities here, of course.
I was gonna say we'll put you number 2, and I'll take number 3. How about that?
Yeah.
Buttering up the host.
I didn't see that one. That one was that was a late breaking trade rumor, I have to say. Hey, Tom, thanks again. Really appreciate your time.
You got it, Suzy. Thanks.
See you, buddy.
Hey, bro.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.